Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, it's cold out because I came out too late. It was like 60, like minutes before I came out. But it's not, it's still close to 50, so that's not bad. The sun is falling and the wind is rising, and that's all I got to say. I'm running for office in Virginia. I'm excited about that. Filed the papers today. I circulated a press release, but there are like 33 offices up, and there are 3 openings to be the director of the Loudoun County, which is the county I live in, Soil and Water Conservation District. It's a device that was created after the Dust Bowl, in which people made very bad decisions about how to handle the soil and what they should plant and what kind of grass they should have. And as a result, the earth was turned into dust and floated up in the air, and people were the subject of great pain and suffering for the failure of there to be crops, of the winds that blew over the land that sometimes buried homes and people and certainly machinery. So these conservation districts were created to create best management practices, agricultural management, so don't put the animals in your streams, put fences, have pumps and things, have wiring to permit the pumps to work, a whole series of things that minimize the adverse impact on water and soil. So anyhow, that's what I'm doing, and I'm told that because I filed so early, which is last week, that I'll be first on the ballot. So I've run twice before, got 56,000 votes the last time. So we'll see, and I hope I get to continue, because there are other things that I think it would be professionally enjoyable to do. So what's the national news? Well, Pence, there's another document they found at Pence's house. What do you think of that? That is to say, a confidential document that he shouldn't have at his home. So we have him, we have Biden giving us some explanation about the documents at his place of abode after leaving the vice presidency. And but he hasn't explained how the documents got to his home. And then, of course, we have Trump. And my view of this is that if each of them violated the law, there should be some prohibition, some punishment for it, period. Otherwise, we just continue to have another example of no man is above the law, when every man who is in a certain political status or business status gets advantages that you and I would not get. So, looking at him on a spectrum, it would appear that the least offensive, clumsy possession of documents is Pence, followed up by Biden, whose explanation we haven't fully heard yet. But the winner, the poster child for misconduct with secret data, has got to be Trump, because they called him on it, he lied about it, he concealed it, they issued a subpoena, he didn't comply, then they got a search warrant, and still he had things hidden. So that's a big deal. It's just one of many things he's done wrong, and we can't ignore that. Now, Biden in other quarters is I guess, doing a bang-up job. It turns out that not only were the people in Peking not interested in the weather in Montana, they were, however, apparently interested in communications, and we'll know the full extent of that as more debris is collected and examined. But no sooner do we shoot down that big balloon at 60,000 feet, just the edge of where our planes can go safely. But over Alaska, there is an alien object. We don't know if it's from China or Russia or where it's from, really, at least at this speaking. Maybe you know by the time you hear me talk. But they shot this down at 40,000 feet because it was closer to the Earth. And I don't know if they had any reports what it could possibly be capable of. But they'll be examining the debris, and we'll be learning as they learn what the devil the story was with that. Now let's turn to Trump. Some think it's important that Trump is going to have to deal with the fact that Pence is going to appear before the grand jury. And we'll see if that happens, but that's the expectation. And if Pence does appear, what is he going to say? And I heard one commentator said, well, you know, when you have 23 people there, you may not take the fifth, you probably talk the truth. Well, I don't know why that's true. I mean, you talk to a lawyer and he tells you, you should take the fifth. Now, I don't know that Pence is going to do that, but the fact that there are 23 people in the room in a federal grand jury does not mean, unless you don't know how it works, that it's going to intimidate you into giving up your right. These 23 people are tools of the prosecution. They do what the prosecutor wants them to do. Thus the old expression, you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. And for the most part, it is an instrument of abuse in the sense that everybody says, well, the defendants are protected by the anonymity of the secrecy of the grand jury. On the other hand, you can beat the living daylights, figuratively, of any witness that appears before the grand jury, and there's really very little that can be done about it. And the grand jury, when it, quote, speaks in an indictment, they're presented the indictment by the prosecutor. And I hate the fact that in our public discussion, we talk about the grand jury as if it's this secret composite that somehow or other guarantees justice, when there have been reams and reams of articles talking about how it's nothing of the sort. I think it was Judge, I want to say Marvin Frankel. I may be combining names. It's been so long. But there was a great book by Naftalis, I think, and the federal judge, when I was a youngster at Columbia Law School. And it came out around that time. And I was talking about the grand jury abuses, meaning it's not really what we say it is. You know, and in Georgia, who do you think wrote that report? And how were those people chosen for that grand jury? You know, these are the questions we should be asking publicly, because they're the only ones that really count if we're concerned about, is the process outcome determinative, or is it as blind and impartial as some say it should be? And it's not blind and impartial. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it is. I wish it were that way, but it's not. So, turning to the DA in Manhattan, well, he's now revved up the engine, and it looks like he's looking to go forward on the case, the ladies of the night and the payoffs, and what different state laws were violated by Trump in that connection because of Cohen, who has been the witness. And he's the witness that apparently Bragg didn't think was good enough to do the charge that the former DA had decided to do, that is DA Vance. And that prompted a book by Pomerantz questioning the prosecution, or I should say the failure of the prosecution. Now, what do I think of Pomerantz? I think of him the same way I think of everybody else that knew something at the time it happened and sat and waited until they could get a book and money from the book. Now, I thought Ari had good questions the other night for Pomerantz, in large part because he went to write this book, and somewhere along the line, he decided to insulate himself from criticism by saying, well, you know, reasonable minds can differ, but that's what I think happened. Well, if you really think that's what happened, and you really think there's no other alternative, how can you say reasonable minds could differ? You can't. You shouldn't. So I think he's one of a number of people who write books about things that they should have made public at the time they happened. And they didn't. And so we find out about it afterwards, and they receive funds. And maybe this goes back to when I was a kid, and, you know, people wrote about the Vietnam War afterwards and conceded how they were lying and misleading the nation. Well, I never bought the book. I do confess that I thumbed through it in a bookstore. But I wouldn't pay a dime for the fellow, and I won't pay a dime for Pomerantz's book, because it suffers the same debilitating, unethical cowardice that when you know something important to the democracy and the republic, you should tell us about it. Not hide it, not conceal it, and not make some bullshit explanation for something that you must have thought was corrupt at the time, and then you mellowed as it approached the time to become public. So you're like a consistent coward. And the fact that you have a clear, strong voice and articulate doesn't conceal what, in my opinion, Ari was prepared to bring out. And all that is to say, we should be focusing on Bragg more. And Pomerantz, in a way, has done the opposite, which is to make people focus on him. So, those are a couple of my thoughts. I'm out on this ever-chillying walk, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow from my Cathedral of Trees. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.